Hello, welcome back. This is Matt Samudio, and this is episode 5 in my series of videos on Slackware Linux and other Unix-like topics. So just a little recap. What I'm trying to do with this series of videos is kind of give a perspective that I think is a little bit different than a lot of what you'd find on YouTube around Linux and Slackware. I'm kind of putting forth the notion that Linux itself is first and foremost an attempt to provide the Unix-like experience on the personal computer. And similarly, Slackware, in kind of its intent, is first and foremost a Unix-like, preserving the Unix-like experience with Linux. So hopefully that ties together. And I'm also trying to focus on how much can be done with very little in terms of, basically using the core functionalities that are part of the Unix-like ecosystem. And by extension, that kind of follows into Linux with Slackware as well. So, one of the reasons why I think this is cool to talk about is when I look on YouTube, like I pulled up, I just went out to YouTube and searched for Linux, and you could kind of, skim through these, and you can kind of see the nature of what's all out here. I think this listing here is pretty representative. So, and I've watched some of these things, and some of them I can just tell what they're like based, just kind of looking at them. But you can see that there's a lot of intro to Linux type stuff, a lot of comparison between Windows and Linux, top 5 reasons to use Linux, intro to Linux and basic Linux commands, all this stuff, myth busting. I've watched a lot of this Matthew Moore's videos, and he definitely completely fits into this category that I'm talking about, which is they kind of focus on looking at Linux as if the expectations are to mimic the Windows experience. And just kind of, you can even see this even more if you refine your search to reviews of Linux. You can look through this, and you can see every single one of these kind of videos. I've actually watched all these here, and there's more. I've watched a lot more, and I can tell you every single one of these, they, probably 75% of them focus on the installation and how easy the installation is. And then after that, they go and they basically start flipping through whatever the desktop's version of the start menu is, and flipping through, look at all these applications that come with it. And then, this was easy to configure this through this GUI, and, basically trying to use the whatever Linux environment they've got exactly as they would use a Windows computer. And I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that, and it has its place, but I really want to do something completely different. So that's what I'm doing here. Couple of changes since I last. Let me just explain a few things here. I'm running TWM here. I do like TWM. I did a review or a video talking about TWM. It's not my desktop of choice. I use Notion, a tiling window manager. I also did a video on that. If I flip back here, you can see there's my video on TWM. And then last episode 4, was on Notion, and I talked about X Windows and desktops and stuff. But I'm showing TWM here mostly because this is actually running in a VNC desktop. I am running Notion outside, this is actually running in a Notion tile. And I wanted to kind of talk or just mention a couple differences here because, for one thing, I got a new monitor, and the monitor is one of these really super high resolution monitors. So in doing a video of my desktop, I didn't want to overwhelm the video with super high resolution. I basically wanted to take a normal type of video. So I basically created a Notion tile that is sized just like a high def video. And it's only a small portion of my screen. And then I used a really cool feature of FFmpeg. That's how I'm doing the screen capture. I basically set up FFmpeg to just capture this portion of my screen. And so the video's resolution is nicely scaled to what I want it to be. And this operating desktop that I have in here fits inside that. So it's kind of a really easy, nice way to kind of line up how I wanted to screen capture. I have a whole bunch of stuff outside of this area that I'm capturing that I've got that I'm going to use to help me do this video. Like I've got my script of stuff I'm going to talk about, and I've got some other commands and stuff. But I'm going to talk about how I got this video capture to work this way. It's in a script, and that's the topic of today's episode is in going about using your computing environment in a much more Unix-like way, kind of exploring the alternative to the typical way that someone would use a Windows computer, and then a lot of those expectations and habits follow when people go back or switch over to Linux. They're kind of using the Linux environment exactly as they would a Windows environment, and it's kind of like, well, what's the point really? There's a whole other world out here around using your computing environment in a different way. It's my way is not my different way isn't the only different way. There's lots of ways to do this, but I'm just going to show what I know or what I've explored as my take on an alternative. And the way I do this video capture is in a script, and these scripts are a big part of how I would propose. It becomes a very Unix-like and very easy way to really leverage the power of your environment. So without any more stalling, let's get into that. All right, so one of the things people, when they get into a Unix-like environment, and they're faced with they have to run commands. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, OMG, Unix commands are so cryptic and so hard. And I can appreciate why that might seem that way, but I'd really like to kind of diffuse that a little bit. And let's talk about you have some basic commands that really anybody can learn in 5 minutes. It's like, PWD, where are you at in the file system? LS, list ls-l, you want to see details, right? Man ls. Now you can see tons and tons of options. That's where people start to get really intimidated. It's like, how can I remember all these options? How can I understand when and where I'm supposed to use them, et cetera, et cetera? And the short, quick answer is you don't. Don't bother trying to remember. And the whole approach, or one of the biggest assets I would say in trying to approach using your environment in a very Unix-like fashion is keep what you use all the time at your fingertips and in your mind, but don't try to remember too much. Just know where you can go get it, right? So if I'm trying to do something with ls that's kind of something I don't do a lot, I do man ls, and I flip through here and I figure, okay, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I wanted to list the numeric user ID and group ID, so the -n, So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Okay, so in keeping with this, I'm not going to remember, I'm not going to try to remember too many commands or too many details of all these commands. And one really nice way of doing this is, okay, let's say I want to start, say, LibreOffice, which is a free, Office suite. I have that installed. Let's say I want to install it. Do I want to try to remember where the heck that thing is and what the name of the command is to start it? Heck no, I do not want to do that. And, I've been using Unix and Linux for decades. And it's not a matter of how advanced or experienced you are. It's literally a matter of just, kind of insightful choices. So I'm going to choose to not have to remember that. So how do I go about, well, I got to start it somehow, right? The Windows way would be to have it in some kind of menu somewhere. And certainly you can have it in a menu. I've got it here in this TWM menu. But like I was saying, I don't actually use TWM that much. My preferred environment is Notion. Notion doesn't really have any menus. So when I'm using Notion, I don't rely on the menu. I use this really neat technique called a symbolic link. So let me just quick demonstrate what a symbolic link is. I'm just sitting here in my home directory, and I'm going to create a small text file. A neat way to create a text file is to use the cat command. And cat just takes from input and dumps it to output. It's a really simple command, but it's got some neat ways you can use it. When I do it this way, I use the redirection. And the redirection, it means I'm sending the output to a file. And because I haven't provided an input, it defaults to using the standard input, which is keyboard. So I'm going to give it a file name here. Let's call it test.txt. Okay, so everything I type on the keyboard is going to get dumped right into test.txt. So I'm going to do, hi there, this is some text. Here is some more text. Oops, text. Okay. When I'm done, I can hit the Control D, which is kind of the universal keyboard sequence for end of input. So I'm going to do that. And now if I do an ls, you can see I've got my test.txt. And now I'm going to use the cat command again, but instead of redirecting the output and making the input be the keyboard, I'm actually going to give it an input file. And now it's actually going to take the contents of test.txt and dump it to the output, which is the terminal. So do that, and you can see that's the stuff I typed in. So quick little neat way to create a file with text in it. That's kind of a tangent, but I just thought it would be interesting to show. Okay, so I have test.txt down here. Right? Okay, symbolic link uses the ln command and then the -s option, which means the -s means soft or symbolic. And then I'm going to tell it which file I want to link to. And I'm going to give it the link a different name. So I'm going to call it A. And I just picked A because it's like about the simplest, shortest thing I could think of. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here with creating a symbolic link. So now if I do ls-l test.txt and A, you'll see a difference here. So here's my file, and you can see it has 50 characters in it. Here's my A, which is a link to test.txt. Kind of neat. And you can see it's really small. In fact, 8, I don't really know off the top of my head what that 8 actually is, but I suspect it's related to whatever the actual data is inside the link that tells it what it's pointing to. So it's going to be really small. So like, for instance, if test.txt was a gigabyte file, the size of A would still be, something like 14 bytes or something like that. This is going to be really small because it's kind of like a pointer is all it is. Okay, but here's how a symbolic link is kind of neat, is when I cat A, I'm actually getting the contents of test.txt. I can even edit A. See? And here is a new line. of text. And I can save it. And now, so if I cat A, obviously you can see I have my new line of text, but notice I edited A. So what the point is here is that A points to test.txt in every way conceivable from the operating system's perspective. So whatever you do to A, it's kind of redirected to you're actually doing it to test.txt at the operating system's level. So you can feel pretty darn free to just use A exactly as you would use test.txt. Now there's a lot of really powerful ways to use this, but the one that I'm kind of getting at here is, so let me just kind of rewind a little bit. We're talking about, I don't want to remember where the heck the Office the LibreOffice program is, or what the name of it is, or how to start it. So one way to help me with this, and remember, I'm using a desktop environment, Notion, that I don't have menus in. And I actually don't want to have menus, because part of what's cool about switching or using this kind of environment is that it's different. It has different strengths. And I'm going to use different approaches and techniques in it. So how do I address this? How to start this program? I have a symbolic link. And I put it in this user local bin location. This is just, this is something that you pick up with familiarity or experience. This is kind of a customary or, a practical location for just local things that are executable. And this is kind of your local systems corral for executable things to get put in there. So that's why I put my, and this is usually, typically it's already in your path, your execution path. If it's not, it'd be a good thing to add. But typically it is. So I put this Office link in there, and it points to, you can see the location of this. This is the actual executable for the LibreOffice thing. Notice it doesn't say LibreOffice. It also, it's like this location, it's likely to actually be different depending on your environment. So the fact that I have this link here and it's pointing to just think of this as wherever that stupid program is. All I have to do is type, oops, I have to spell it right though, Office, right? Okay, so then it just starts it up. Okay, so, yeah, you guys probably know what LibreOffice is like, so I'll just get out of that. But, so, trick number 1, symbolic links. You don't have to remember cryptic names, cryptic locations. Make a symbolic link in a cool little location, and then you can just type a word. When I want to get into Office, I just type Office. So that's cool. Another thing that's kind of neat is your single little commands that you want to write that you can remember. They don't have to always be links. They can also be scripts. Now, some people might mention, it's like, oh yeah, you could just do that with batch files in Windows too. The thing about batch files in Windows is, number one, there's literally no real programming capability in batch files. The programming capability is so primitive, it's just pathetic. It's laughable. So nobody seriously uses batch files for much of anything. I have actually seen some software vendors try to wrap up some fairly significant logic in batch files because they need to make sure that certain things are certain ways for their software to run right. And talk about an exercise in pain trying to actually create batch files that actually do anything intelligent. It's, I'm sorry. So anyway, scripts in the Unix-like environments are not that way. They are so much more pleasant to use, so much more powerful, so much more technically comprehensive in terms of what you can do in them. There's no comparison. So, and then the other thing too is just the way that processes, the process model and the way things work in a Unix-like environment. A script is just another, it's just another process in the stack of processes that you're executing. And there's ways that from a script that you can also launch a new process and have it be completely separate from the script's process. And then you can bail out of the script and leave the operating environment with the new process you created running and no other crap left. And so, you have the choice. Either the new process that you're creating from the script can run, as a child process, and you can possibly have some control over that process from the still running script. And if you choose to do that, it's still very environment friendly. I mean, Unix processes stack very nicely that way. And there's nothing different about the script's process than any other Unix process. So, or as I mentioned, you can choose to detach the process, and then you can take your script completely out of the picture after it's done what it needs to do. And that's another nice, clean way to do things. So I want to show this really neat kind of script that I wrote this script a long, long time ago. And I call it new term. Let me just give you a little picture. Well, I can show from here too. -L user local bin. So I just want to call your attention to these links here. So the way new term works, and this is another interesting thing about Unix programs, is when a Unix program is launched, there's a list of arguments. Some of those arguments to the program are command line arguments, but there's a special one at the front, which is it tells the program what it was called, invoked as. And so you can have the same program invoked by different names, and the program can actually look at that argument and tell how it was called. And so I use that neat little feature, and this is standard to Unix, all Unix-like environments. So I use that little feature, and I can call this new term script with any of these names. And notice these are symbolic links. They just point to the new term script. But I can call them as any of these names, and the script is smart. It knows, based on what I called it, it does something different. Now, if you look down this list of links here, you can see what I've got here. I've got xdiff, and then there's a big, huge, and small version of it. I have xless, big, huge, and small. I have xmail, big, huge, and small. I have xman. I didn't bother to make any size varieties of that one. I have xsql, big and small. I didn't really care about huge on that one. I have xtail, which notice I don't have any size varieties of that one either. Xtop, xtitle, etc. So you can kind of tell, or you can kind of see the theme here is that these are all console mode programs. Less is a console program, basically a terminal type of, it's something you run in a terminal. Man is something you run in a terminal. Tail is something you run in a terminal. So what the new term does is it's a wrapper script that basically figures out what it is, which command line program are you wanting to run, and it's going to run it in an X term. So, and the significance of that, let me just demonstrate quickly. If I can run top in my terminal, which is, gives you some system metrics. There's a neat little program called atop. Oops, I'm sorry, htop. There's atop too, but I don't use it. Htop is a kind of an enhanced version of top. It gives you some colors and it lays things out a little differently, but you can see it's system metrics. It tells you what your CPU cores are doing, how much memory you're using, and it lists your processes and tells you how much CPU and memory, etc. You can see what this is. Okay, so I can run htop in my terminal, just like normal, or I can run my xtop command, which is, again, just to refer you back to, that's a symbolic link to the new term script. And this is what it does. It launched htop in an X term. See, so here's my command, my Xterm that I ran it from. So this is still available to me now. I can still do stuff here, but I have a new window, a new Xterm window that has htop running in it. And it doesn't have a shell underneath. It's literally just running htop. So if I quit htop, the window goes away automatically. So this is a way that I can launch new windows from the command line, and in those windows I can have my different, so like let's say I can do man diff. So this is the man page for the diff command, right? I can do xman diff, and now I have that same man page in an X window. And when I'm done, I just, quit the man display, which takes the Q command. I hit Q and the X window goes away. The whole window goes away. So I can do the same thing with, so I can do vim test.txt, and I can edit this file here. Or if I want it in a different window, XVI test.txt. And look at that. It brings me into an Xterm running VI with that file. And you can see the colors are different too. So let's copy test.txt to test01.txt and test02.txt. Test02.txt. I'm going to make a couple changes. Okay, in test2. Now I can do diff test01.txt, test02.txt. Right, and that gives me this diff output. Yeah, some people think that's kind of cryptic. They'd like to see it a little more visually. So I can go xdiff test01.txt, test02.txt. Whoa, look at this. Side by side visual diff in a graphical window. Now I just happened to use Vim for this, Vim diff. So Vim diff is a special mode of Vim. I mean, I could show you Vim diff. I can run Vim diff in my terminal. You can see I get the side-by-side visual in my terminal Vim. Or if I do the xdiff variety, it opens up another window with Vim diff in it of the two files. So again, it's just kind of a nice wrapper for that deal. And all really nice, cute little commands. Let me do xless test01.txt. We're all familiar with the less program. Less test01.txt. That's the less program. Q exits. I can get it into another window if I want it. X. So this is what the script does. So let me user local bin new term. Let's take a look at the actual script here. I think I noticed in one of my previous videos that the color scheme when I have a black terminal isn't the best. So I'm actually going to do it here for us. gvim user local bin new term. All right, let me set the font a little bigger for us. What would be big enough? 18? 16? Let's try 18. All right, so stretch this out a bit here. Okay. So this is the actual new term script. And I don't want to go into tons and tons of detail here, but let me just flip through some of the basics and you can kind of get the idea. So this is a bunch of defaults, basically. And here is where, so inv, which I named short for invoke. This is that special argument, $0. So I echo $0 and I pipe it to sed, and I I basically do some text substitution on it to get rid of, I get rid of any slashes and stuff like that in there. Then I parse out, then I take the result of that and I parse out any small, big, or huge, and I set these small, big, and huge variables. This is how I detect whether I launched the program with one of those size variants, which is, I use that down here to basically set the terminal font size of the Xterm that gets created. So I'm basically doing some logic around these different things here, and setting the font variable. And you can see this is the style of font specification it takes. And a lot of this stuff is determined by Xterm itself. This is the way Xterm expects its arguments to be. Then I've got some color stuff in here too. So by default, I use a black background and a white foreground. In some of these variants, you can see I specifically set the colors to something special. But here's the case statement. So based on, remember, the INV is the command that was actually invoked. So this case statement, these are the different possibility. These are the different instances of that invoked. So if I get invoked as a new term, anything that starts with a new term, then I set these types of variables. Xtitle, which is kind of neat. Let me just new term, huge. Okay, so this is a big terminal. If I do Xtitle, notice by default the title is terminal. If I do Xtitle, it sets it to username at hostname, right? But that's if I don't pass anything. If I pass something else, hi, this is my terminal. Notice it sets the title of the terminal to that. So that's what the Xtitle thing is. And you can see that it does basically some control character kind of stuff in it. Okay, but here's where we get into the commands. So you can see that XVI, if I invoke the script as XVI, it's going to set the command to vim and then whatever else is on the arguments. That's what that $star is. It actually sets some other Xterm types of things. An important one here is when you're in VI, the scroll bars of an Xterm don't apply to what's going on in the VI session. So these are the options to turn off the scroll bar, which I do when I launch it as VI. Same thing with diff. Diff is actually vim. Xdiff is actually vim in diff mode. So that's the command that gets run. But I turn off the scroll bar and set the colors. Xtail, it sets the command to tail, and then I give it these default type things. It sets some colors and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see what's going on here. Now, there's some of these that get a little bit more involved. So, for instance, take this XSQL, which I have a config file that I set up, and I actually parse out some values of the config file based on the first argument that's passed in. And this actually launches in a new terminal a MySQL client. So I can have different connections to my MySQL databases in their own terminals. Very easily start up, and then I just configure the connection information in this config file, which I parse out. I can set fonts and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you get the idea here. It's pretty cool stuff. It's a pretty simple script. It's evolved over many years. I've tweaked on it and stuff. And occasionally I'll add new things in here as I run across them. So like here's one that starts up MP3 player in its own window. Here's another one that starts up ALSA mixer. So and these. So, I even get to the point where I even forget that the command is supposed to be ALSA mixer. I don't even care anymore. I just type xmix and it pops up. So this is another neat way to alias nice little small command keywords that you like into behaviors that you use a lot and that you want. So that is the new term script. Showed you about the symbolic links. Now, another kind of say like the next step in scripting and aliasing is, let me just give you a quick view. I got a ton of scripts and stuff in my home bin directory. And some of these things are experimental. Some of them are things I play around with. Some of them I use all the time. Let me just give you a highlight or a high-level view of some of the kind of the neat ones. So let's take a look at my vid to MP3 script. So this is a nice little script. It's very small, you can see. But what I'm doing here is I have a video, and I want the sound out of it. And I don't tell anyone, but I actually do this a lot with YouTube videos. So I download the YouTube video, and then I run this command on it, and what it does is it calls ffmpeg, and it strips out, it takes the video file in, right? And then it sets these options for the, and the A encoder, the audio encoder and stuff. It basically puts out a 192K bitrate MP3 file. 192K. 128K is what a lot of people use for the MP3s. The 192K is just that little bit of an edge of better quality on the MP3 file, which I like. So that's what I use. But anyway, I don't want to have to remember all this crap every time. And this is the thing that a lot of people complain about. It's like, oh, I don't want to remember all those Unix commands. They're so cryptic and so hard. It's like, you don't have to remember them. You figure them out once. And then you put it in a little wrapper script. And now, vid to MP3. It's like, what could be more easier to remember? And if I forget what it's called, I can always ls my bin directory. It's like, what did I call that again? It had something to do with video. Oh, yeah, there it is, vid to MP3. Blah. See, I got another one, vid for YT. That one actually has the FFmpeg options in it that take any kind of video that I record and re-encodes it, scales it, and puts the quality at a size that's suitable for YouTube. Because, putting up videos of super high resolution and super high quality that translates into really huge size, that doesn't always work well for YouTube. So, getting it encoded and scaled right for YouTube, it's cool. I don't want to remember how to do that every time, so I put it in a script. So that's that. Yeah, so that's that one. Let me also show you this other neat one, which I use all the time. And lo and behold, it's called Screenshot. Guess what it does? It does a screenshot of my whole desktop. And it's as easy as this. The import command comes with a suite of, it's a product called Image Magic. And it's a whole suite of stuff. Has to do with graphics. And it's pretty much standard on any Linux distribution. You're going to have it. But import, and then it's got this neat functionality where you can just import as an image the root window, which is your desktop, everything on it. And then I put it in a particular spot, and notice I give it a little suffix here that that $$ is the number of the process ID. It's the process ID of this script launch. What that does is it basically gives the picture a fairly unique file name. So I can do lots of screenshots and not worry about overwriting them and not having to worry too much about naming them. And when I feel like it, I can go out and look at these files and rename them if I want to. But other than that, I mean, it's very simple, but again, like everyone's, like most people complain, it's like, I don't want to have to type in, I don't have to remember how the actual command works. You don't have to. I just type screenshot and I get a screenshot. It's as simple as that. All right, another really cool one bin mic. This is one that it does an audio recording off of the built-in microphone. So I don't want to go into the details of how this all works, but it uses, again, these are standard programs. A-Record and A-Play are from ALSA, which is the probably the most widely used Linux sound. I mean, there's Pulse Audio out there now, but Pulse Audio actually works through ALSA underneath it anyway. So if you've got Linux, you probably have ALSA. So it just uses these standard little tools to record from the mic. Again, the script is mostly about figuring out the options that are supposed to go to it. And you can see here I put in some neat little things. So I can say record for a certain number of seconds. I have test mode, which means that you're going to record and then you're going to remove the audio file that you recorded after you play it back. And then there's an X mode, which is suppress, playing the audio after recording it. Just play it. Just record it. Don't play it. If you don't use the X, it records, and then when it's done recording, it actually plays the audio file back for you. So you can suppress that if you want. So, and this is all just, I just threw this together. It's not hard. It's really easy. It's just a matter of, being a little creative and using your own brain. And these really simple, very easy to use tools. And I don't need menus or graphics or anything to do this. And it's just as easy as typing mic in return. And I'm recording off my mic. So, before I forget, I wanted to show you this neat little thing here too. So what this is, I'm recording my audio separately from the video. And the reason I'm doing this is because the computer that I'm actually doing this on, it has a really noisy line in jack. It's right next to the network port, and it's also right next to the power supply, and there's just a ton of noise on it. If I try to record off of that, it's every time the network card lights up, it's got a like a hiss or like a buzz, and then you can hear this kind of sound from the power supply. And I did a whole bunch of checking out, basically doing different things and got it down to that's what it is. It's all noise from all the peripherals inside the case. So this computer isn't designed for audio. So it just doesn't work to record audio on it. So I'm recording on an outboard recorder, and what I'm using is the Behringer X32 rack, which is, it's probably maybe a little overkill for most people, but it is super, super cool. It records the whole mix and everything that's running through it, records it to a USB drive that's just stuck right into it. So that's what I'm recording. But this is, so I've got my microphone plugged into channel 14, and this is channel 4. So you can see there's lots of channels on this thing. There's 32 channels. I'm using just one for the microphone. But I just wanted to show you how cool this is because just even listening to myself record here, I can already tell you that the quality of the audio is so much better. And one of the keys to this, and I've actually told a lot of people that they should look into doing this, but this mixer has built in for every channel, it has a bunch of processing, and the really cool one is this dynamics processor, which is basically a compressor. You can see as I talk, see the compressor lighting up? It's actually pulling, my voice is going over the threshold of the compression. And so the compressor's squashing it down, and how much red light is showing is how much the compressor is squashing my voice. So the more light there is, the more it's having to squash my voice. If I did not have this compressor on, then all the times that you see it lighting up red, it would probably be distorting. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to set the gain on the microphone up a lot. And so it can get when I'm talking really soft like this, you can still hear it pretty good. And then if I, put a little oomph behind my voice like this, it doesn't blow the sound out, blow your brain out your ears. So this is super cool. And this is the actual compressor control itself. I can change that threshold. I can, change all these different things. But it just adds a lot to the quality of the audio. I just wanted to show you that. And I also wanted to give a plug for Behringer here because this is the remote control application for the mixer. That's right. You do not have to put your hands on faders on the actual mixer. It sits in the rack. You don't have to touch it. You launch this computer program and you have full control over all aspects of all. It's a full front of house mixer. Super, super cool. And they have this program that runs on Linux. As far as this is the only professional audio vendor that I know of that provides something like this. So that was kind of the decision maker for me. I saw they had their remote control app for Linux. I'm like, I'm there. So I bought it. I have 2 of them actually. I do professional live sound for bands and stuff. I actually use it for my PA system and everything. So pretty cool stuff. I just wanted to give a plug for that. So back to the scripts. I think we're good here. Showed you the basics on this. Let me show you another kind of interesting thing here. So I've got VNC running here. This one's running on my local desktop. Let me show you. Let's see if I go to. I have a server that I call Spirit. Oops, misspelled grep. All right, I have no VNC server running on Spirit. So I want to show you the script. Oh, I didn't set the display. Let me set the display here. Notice I set it to 1 because this VNC desktop is display 1. And so let me make sure that Spirit has access to this desktop. Okay, now I can do new term, huge. See, now this terminal opened up on this VNC desktop here. I don't want it quite that big. Let me just call it new term big. Oops. All right. Now I can get off of there. Okay. So this one, I'll use my X title. So this terminal is running on Spirit. Oops. Grep VNC. Notice I don't have any VNC server running there. So I have a script on Spirit, which I call VNC. And again, it's just a simple little wrapper script. But the biggest thing it does is it sets the geometry of the desktop that I want. I don't want to have to remember how big do I make these desktops again? I don't remember. I don't have to remember all that. I just, call the script and the script does it for me. And it calls the VNC server with the geometry. So I'm just going to type VNC. And then it tells me, okay, I got Spirit : 1. That's where my desktop is, right? So now I could say VNC server, VNC viewer, Spirit : 1. Oops, wrong password. Wrong password again. There we go. That was the right password. So now I have a VNC viewer looking at the desktop on Spirit. So notice I kind of fumbled around with passwords and stuff. I didn't remember. I haven't, obviously haven't used it too much recently, so I didn't remember the password. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So one of the cool things I've got is, well, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, that's right, because I didn't close. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to go back to here. This is on my local machine, on my local desktop. Notice I have this VNC Spirit script. So ls-x3 bin VNC spirit. Now, this is, again, a very simple wrapper script, but notice it calls the VNC viewer, and it gives authentication, so I don't have to remember the password. Now, this is cool about VNC, or at least this is tight VNC. I don't know if all the other VNC variants work this way, but at least tight VNC, the one I really like to use, works this way. So I can give it this auth. Well, you can name it whatever you want. I just named it this way because that's what I chose as a naming convention. But notice it's in my home directory's private Etsy directory. So I have that, and then it says where I'm going, and then it puts it in the background. So then the script exits, and it's just the viewer left running. So let me show you what that looks like. If I just do VNC spirit, see, it pulls it right up, and this is my X title. You can see it's on Spirit. Uname-A Spirit. You can see Spirit is a 32-bit QEMU virtual machine. So interesting. But anyway, that's how this script works. Is I don't have to remember the password or any of the other details that I want in my viewer session. I can close. I just type VNC Spirit, and I'm there. Now, how secure is that? It's secure because I'm in my ls-la. I'm in my Etsy directory, and my private one under my home directory, and you can see that my auth, Spirit VNC auth, look at the permissions. I mean, it's even in a private group, but even so, the group permissions, there's nothing. Nobody can read this file except me. And root. Well, if they've got root, if somebody gets root on the box, it's game over anyway. You can't hide anything from root. So from a user perspective, it's as secure as it's going to get. So, and then how you create these files, all you have to do is you run VNC password and give it the file name, and then it actually just prompts you for password, and then there's a view-only password too. You just input those on the command line as if you were connecting, and it stores the password encrypted in here. And then you can just point it to that file and use it. So another way that scripting and aliasing helps me, when I need to connect, I don't have to search through menus and all that stuff. I don't even have to remember the password. I just do VNC Spirit, and I know I go to my Spirit virtual machine, or my Spirit desktop. Easy as pie. And that, those scripts are, I just think they're cool. So small, trivial, simple, but they do so much for you. Again, getting back to my theme here, which is how so much can be done with very little. And to wrap this up, I want to show you bin rip audio CD. This is a script I'm actually really proud of, and it's not super. Oh, I forgot this black, red, and green scheme doesn't show very well. So let me go back here. I'm sorry about that. Let me get out of some of this stuff here. gvim user local bin rip audio CD. All right, let me put this font bigger for you. Set GUI font. Oops, font equal blah. I think we figured out 18 was pretty good. 20. Let's go 20. All right. All right, so what this does is, again, it's not super huge. Nothing super complicated. It's just a little bit of creativity, a little bit of thought put into it. And I'm using some, again, really super common CDDA to wave is part of this it's like really standard. If your Linux distribution doesn't have this, I'd be really super surprised. Pretty much every Linux distribution has this. It's a command line utility for ripping, basically just reading directly music off of CD files and writing it out as a WAV file. There's some options that I figured out that I like, and I've got those packaged up in here. And then I've got this function that I wrote that generates, I called it Gen MP3s, but it actually generates 3 different formats of audio. And again, it uses so FLAC is free lossless audio codec. And again, it's real standard on Linux distributions. And OGG or OGG and ENC, OGG encoder, whatever. So what I'm doing is I'm using the Blade MP3 encoder. I'm using the FLAC audio encoder and the OGG Inc. And I'm creating MP3s, FLAC, and OGG files. After I have ripped, so this command here rips all the audio off of the CD. And then once I have all that audio, I parse this audio.cddb file, which has all the metadata about what it ripped off the CD. And I do some parsing and some, basically generation of some numbers and the title string and all that stuff. And then I use that information that I figure out to so the IDX is like 01, 02, 03. It's the number of the audio track. And the WAV file that gets generated has that kind of a file format. So I use that IDX and I loop through and I do each one. And then I rename the MP3 using this file naming scheme. And again, these segments I figured out from the metadata. I go through and I basically do all this encoding automatically, and I loop through, each of the tracks. I loop through each track, and then, got a little notes up at the top here. Basically, the only work you really have to do is you have to make sure that this is right for your system, and this is just a standard Linux thing. The easiest, most straightforward standard way to do this is to use the CD record scan bus option. And that's something you do on the command line. So you do, let me get root up. You have to be root to do this. So you do CD record -scan bus. And if I do this, it'll tell me I don't have anything. But I know that if I do AT API, so this tells it that the device is of the AT API class. If I do this, oh, you know what? I'm not even on the right computer. Sorry, I don't even have a CD drive in this computer, so I can't show you this on this computer. But excuse me. If I was on the computer that has the CD drive, you run this command, and it gives you a list of all the devices, and you can see which one you have to put in here for the CD device. And then I create an actual location for all of the output. I create it in my temp directory, and I give it a process. Remember this $$ is the process ID. I give it a CD rip dash and then a process ID. Make sure that the new directory name is unique, and it puts all of the results of all this stuff under that directory, and then I can go, move it around or do whatever I want with it after that. But so the end result is all I do is I go to my computer that has the CD drive, I stick in the CD, and then I do rip audio CD and hit return. And it does all of this work. And the result is I have that directory with the entire CD ripped into WAV files, and also all the MP3s generated and named in a way that I like them named, and all the OGG files generated the same, and the WAV files encoded as FLAC format. Now let me just mention the whole FLAC thing. WAV files are lossless. Every single bit of the original audio data off of the CD is preserved in the WAV file. FLAC is another lossless audio storage. I guess maybe you call it a file format, but it's actually the way that the audio data is encoded. It's lossless, so you don't lose a single bit of data. Nothing has changed about the audio, so it's just as good as the original, but it's also compressed, and it's a lossless compression. So you don't lose any audio data or anything if you convert your WAV files into FLAC files. You can get rid of the WAV files, and you can see in my script. Eventually, I'm planning that I will probably get rid of the WAV files, because I just want to hang on to the FLAC files. The FLAC files are much smaller, and it's the difference between that and just saving the MP3s. MP3s, you have lost a whole bunch of data, because the MP3 codec is not lossless compression. It gets way better compression. In other words, your audio data is compressed down very much smaller, but in order to do that, it actually loses some of the audio data. So I always want to make sure I keep all of my original audio data, so I want it to be FLAC, and I could get rid of the waves. Right now, I actually have a use for the WAV files, so I'm hanging on to them for now, but eventually I will probably change this script. I'll uncomment this, and I'll just ditch the WAV files. And if I ever need them, I can regenerate them from the FLAC. But anyway, so that's all I do, is I do rip audio CD. I stick the CD in, do rip audio CD, and I get everything I want, all in that subdirectory, done. Don't have to remember any of this stuff. And I don't have to buy a program. I don't have to, deal with a whole bunch of layers of GUI stuff built on top that half of it breaks for weird reasons, and it doesn't have anything to do with the actual mechanics of the CD itself. I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And I don't have to worry about it, upgrades not working, or if I upgrade my operating system, that now the stupid CD ripper won't work, all that stuff. All of this stuff is super simple, standard. It hasn't changed forever. So, I just know it's going to work, and it always does work. Pretty flawless. So that is that's about what I wanted to do for this video. So hopefully you will find this useful. And again, I just want to reiterate my goal here. I'm trying to show how much can be done with so very little, and I'm also trying to show how one would go about, really taking an exploration of Unix-like environments from a Unix-like usage perspective. In other words, we're not trying to use the computer like you would use a Windows computer. We're trying to use the computer like you would use a Unix computer. And to me, that's really the whole point. So I have so much more to say about this stuff. And I guess that means that there's going to be lots more videos. Sorry that I have not been able to put these out as fast, or, there's some time in between each one. Sorry about that. I do get busy. I have a day job, and I have lots of hobbies. So, but I do enjoy doing this stuff, and I want to do more. I really also like all of your comments and questions. I like to answer questions too. So please feel free, make comments, ask questions. Another thing I'd really like is I would like if any of you people that watch my video and like it, if you would also make some videos, maybe in response, or maybe just kind of to continue the conversation about this level of discussion. I would love to see all your guys' videos too. That'd be pretty cool. So anyway, that's all I've got for this time, and I will try to get another episode up before too long. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.